Hey folks, it's Ray at Rainmaker.com, and today I've got 11 new things to know about the brand new Garmin Venu 2 Plus. Now in this video I'm going to cover all of the newness, and at the end I'll talk about accuracy and how it's performed day to day over the past month or so. But if you're looking for like a complete user interface tour, beginner's guide, tutorial, something like that, you can check out the link up in the corner there where I go through the watch, the whole thing step by step, every single feature and how it works, from day-to-day usage to sport usage to the calling features. All that stuff is covered in that video. Now before we get into the full 11 things to know, a quick freebie, the price. The price here is $449 for the Venu 2 Plus compared to $399 in the past for the Venu 2 series. So with that, number one on the list is the size change. So the Venu 2 Plus actually sits in between the Venu 2 and the Venu 2S. Literally, it is smack dab in the middle size-wise. I'll put the exact size on the screen right now. If I turn on these other two screens here, you'll see it's the same screen overall. I'll get into the sport mode so you can see kind of how similar they are. But they've essentially taken the display from the larger Venu 2 and plopped it into the Venu 2 Plus, so the display stays the same at 1.3 inches. They just reduced the bezel size down to give you a smaller overall watch. Next up on the list is they've added a speaker and a microphone. So we're gonna take the other two Venus out of the way here. And you may be saying, well, hasn't always had a speaker? And no, it's had a beeper, but not a speaker. So in this case, a speaker can play music and take voice calls and all the kind of stuff that we'll get into in just a second. While with the microphone, you can go ahead and make calls with it as well as ask the voice assistant things. So this gets right into one of the main features of the Venu 2 Plus, which is the voice assistance. Now the way it works is there's this middle button right there, and when I long hold this down, it'll trigger the voice assistant. Now depending on your phone, you get different voice assistants. In the case of my phone with iOS, I'm gonna go ahead and get Siri. If you have an Android phone that's non-Samsung, then you're gonna get Google Assistant. If you have a Samsung phone, then you can choose between Bixby or Google Assistant. So in this case, I'm gonna go ahead and press this down right there, and it's gonna use a speaker on the device itself. I'm gonna ask it a question. Who is DC Rainmaker?
DC Rainmaker is a blog by Rainmaker that reviews technology used for runners, cyclists, and triathletes.
And you can see it's showing the result on the screen itself. In this case, it's pulling up from Wikipedia, as well as speaking it on the speaker. Now you can change the volume if you want to on the speaker. And then when you're done with it, you just simply press either the back button to escape out of it, or just let it time out. Now for me personally, I'm not really much of a voice assistant kind of guy, so this isn't really necessarily my jam, but for you, if you are, you've now got it. Of course, it's gonna leverage whatever voice assistant is on your phone, like I mentioned. So like the accuracy doesn't come into it, it's just how smart is Siri or Google Assistant or whatever the case may be. Now this is a good time to mention, if you are finding this video useful or interesting, consider whacking the like button at the bottom there. It really does help out this video and the channel quite a bit. Okay, so right into our next item here, which is phone calling, the ability to receive and make phone calls from the wrist. Now, of course, in this case, I put it on the table so you can see what's going on. But to access it, you go ahead and just hold this upper right-hand button for a couple seconds, gets you in the controls menu, and you see the phone icon right there. Just simply tap that and you have the phone calling menu. I can either dial a phone number or I can go back here if I just press the back button like this and choose one of my contacts like that. So I'm gonna go and choose this contact right there, Bobby Maker, and you can see I can go ahead and just tap it again to call, and now it's gonna call from here. At this point, it's actually gonna go ahead and call on the wrist there. So you choose the audio option, you can see Venu 2 Plus, speaker or iPhone, and we'll see how long it takes my wife to answer here. Oh, she just rejected my call. Actually, I'm just gonna call Des. He doesn't even know I'm gonna call him. I'm just gonna see what happens there. Tap his phone number right there, and it says calling. And at this point, it's leveraging the microphone on the unit itself. I'm gonna pull this microphone out here, and that way you can hear him when he talks through. Hello, Mr. Des.
How's it going?
Not too bad. I'm recording right now, so I'm just recording the fact that I'm calling you and it's showing a number and I can hear you from the speaker on the watch itself.
And you sound very good on my iPhone 13 Pro speaker right now.
Not bad. Yeah, you sound pretty decent. You sound a little bit muffled, but it's not bad. It shows that the audio is coming from the watch. So if I tap that right there, you see Venu 2 Plus as the source, as opposed to being from my iPhone itself. And I can then switch to the iPhone or speaker, or even my Mac if I wanted to, which is cool, just like you would switch a headset or something like that. The idea being you can use the speaker on this to go ahead and make and receive the phone calls if you want to, without having to pull out your phone. Keep in mind, there is no LTE in this watch. There's no cellular connectivity in the watch itself. It does 100% depend on the Bluetooth connection to your phone in the exact same way that like a Samsung or Apple Watch would, that does not have LTE or cellular capabilities built into it. Okay, the next item on the list is the ability to play music through the speaker on the watch as opposed to requiring Bluetooth headphones. You can still use Bluetooth headphones just fine, but if you have a situation where you just want to play it right from the watch, maybe you're just hanging out in your backyard and just don't have anything else with you, this works. And you don't need a phone. You can use Spotify or Amazon Music, any of those music services that are downloaded to your watch in an offline mode, you can use. So in my case, I'm just going to go ahead and access the controls menu and get into Spotify right there. And I'm just going to choose whatever song is there from Supremes. And then I can choose my audio output. I can either add a Bluetooth device or just choose speaker. And there we go. It's now playing. And I've got to say, the speaker isn't bad. It's not horrific. It's acceptable. It's definitely not my phone. It's definitely not a fancy speaker, but it's fine for the wrist. It's probably not as good speaker-wise as the Apple Watch Series 7, but still overall, it's pretty much totally fine for what I might use it for. Okay, next up on the list is the ability to use the speaker here as well as the calling functions for emergency assistance. So this is built into Garmin's Safety Suite where you can notify predefined contacts of emergency situation and it basically sends a message with where you are, your location, and all this kind of stuff. It's pretty cool. So there's a bunch of different ways this can get activated depending on how you've set it up. Now you can go ahead and do a silent notification where you basically just hold this down for a bunch of seconds until it goes into emergency assistant notification mode, or you can do what I just did right there into the controls menu, and I've added an assistance option at the bottom there, or you can go through an actual crash and you can then get notified that way. Like there's a lot of ways you can get into this, but I'm gonna go back this way so I can kind of step through it one at a time. And you can see this little option right there. I tap it. Do I want to call or message someone? I'm going to choose to call, and then now it's going to go and choose my predefined phone a friend, which in this case is just my other phone. So you can see that will pop in right there. So now it's coming in. I can answer that phone call. There we go. And now at this point, just simply piping my audio from the speaker on my watch, you can see right there, Venu 2 Plus, over to this phone over here, which will sound horrendous, of course, which is why the volume is down quite a bit. Now, what's interesting though, at the same time, once I hang up here, they will go get notified with an assistance alert. So this same thing will come through to their phone, and they will get emergency assistance alert, letting them know where I am, all my location information, everything about me is in live track. So it's basically instantiating a live track to this phone with my details until I actually stop it. And in this message right there, I've got my coordinates, my location. I can see more information about it. Everything is there that someone would need to track me. So this is actually really interesting if you were in, say, a bike crash or something like that, where you sent this to someone and then an ambulance came and picked you up. This would actually live track all the way to the hospital, wherever you are, until you've gone ahead and you've stopped this here. And it literally shows up as an activity on your Garmin Connect afterwards, just like a hike or a run or a swim. It literally says like emergency assistance activity. Anyways, this is the first time that we've seen this with a phone calling feature using the speaker and the microphone from the watch, because it's the first time Garmin's had a speaker and a microphone in the watch itself. Okay, so moving along to something that's not as complex, which is there are a bunch of new tones. So with now an actual speaker in this device as opposed to just a beeper, you hear a lot better tones throughout the entire watch. I'll put a couple various tone noises right now so you can hear what they're sounding like. And again, it's definitely not a big thing at all. This is something that just adds like a little bit of finesse to the watch. And I've often talked about one of the challenges of the Venu series compared to an Apple Watch Series 7 or a Samsung Galaxy Watch is sometimes a lack of finesse that Garmin has in this device compared to those. So this is like a finesse item, and it just feels like a nicer watch overall compared to the original Venu 2 or Venu 2S. So now when we gained those new tones, we've actually lost a little bit of battery life with that. So the official claim for battery life here is 9 days compared to 10 and 11 days for the Venu 2 and the 2S. So a slight reduction there. I've also put the other GPS times on the screen right now. In my real world testing for this, it's obviously going to depend on whether or not you have the always on mode for the display or you have the gesture mode. Right now it's in gesture mode, so it turns off every single time I stop touching it. Normally it's on my wrist, and I raise it up, the screen turns on, and put it down, the screen turns off. In always on mode, where it's on basically all day long, in that case, you're looking at about 2 to 3 days of real world usage. And then in my testing with the gesture mode, I'm finding like 5 to 6-ish days, and that's including like an hour and a half or so of GPS or workout time every single day. So it's about where I'd expect to be, and pretty much better than most other AMOLED watches on the market today. Okay, so this item on the list is all about like a bunch of stylistic changes. First off, the watch band, it sits in the middle. So this used to be a 22 mil and an 18 mil. Now it's at 20 mil in the middle there, which makes sense. Flipping it over on the back, you see there's now a stainless steel case design that's standard on the watch versus the Venu 2 was not standard, did not have it there. On the front bezel, there's some slight styling differences here. This has a more etch styling. The etching on this is really hard to see, but it's there. I actually prefer the original Venu 2, but that's just me. And then all the metal surfaces here have a PVD coating to make it a little bit more resilient to scratches. Okay, so rounding on home here, one interesting change that's coming to not only the Venu 2 Plus, but also the other Venu 2s right here, coming in February, which is a change with the watch faces. So right now the watch faces, these data pieces right there are called complications. So you can see my steps up top, body, battery, date, and so on. So I can go up here, I can long hold on steps, and there we go. It brings me a steps widget, and now I can go back and see my steps over the course of the day. I can press back here. I can do the same over here on the body battery, bringing me to that. And then any of the widgets that you define, because you can customize these widgets to be whatever you want. So it'll always bring you to the widget, essentially just bringing you down here in this widget list to the actual piece of information and the data from there that you can dive into more depth. And again, while that will launch with the Venu 2 Plus, it'll actually come to the existing Venu 2 and Venu 2S in February. Finally, for this last bullet point, we're going to talk about the things that have not changed. It's just a whole bunch of things I want to run through to kind of quickly answer some questions. First off, the optical heart rate sensor on the back there has not changed. That is the Gen 4 Elevate optical heart rate sensor from Garmin. That includes pulse ox and breathing rate and 24/7 heart rate and stress. All that's exactly the same as the past. The GPS inside of it is the same as the Venu 2 was. So no multi-band stuff there, nothing fancy like that, just the same GLONASS and Galileo and GPS connectivity as in the past, which, as you can see in my accuracy testing in just a second, has been more than sufficient. The sport modes that you have up here are all the same. There's no differences there at all. All those sport modes are all still there and accessible for you. You can see them as you go through there right there. I also talk about all those in my full tutorial beginner's guide of sorts that's linked up in the corner there. The display, as I mentioned earlier, is the same 1.3-inch AMOLED display that's on the original Venu 2 that is now in the Venu 2 Plus. The same music support as before, including Spotify and Amazon connecting to Bluetooth headphones, except now, of course, you can go ahead and pipe out the music from a speaker itself. So with that, let's talk about accuracy. Looking at the heart rate data, the GPS data, it's all the kind of fun stuff. For that, we're gonna jump over to the computer. So for example, looking at this run right here, first down a straight path, then under some tree cover, eventually some tunnels and bridges. Overall, it's very, very good and pretty much exactly in line with the Apple Watch Series 7, as well as the Coros Vertex 2. It's a little bit better than the Coros Vertex 2 for the first half of the run, and they kind of flip roles in the second half. If we look at the heart rate on this hard interval run, you see that overall, it's very close to the reference devices, but there is that latency that we often see with optical heart rate sensors on the wrist, and that happens here as well, though it's not that bad, usually only a couple seconds behind. The same is true also for this hard interval workout that's indoors on an indoor bike. In that case, it's pretty much spot on the entire time. If we head outside and look at 3.5-hour outdoor ride up through the mountains, against cliffs, through the trees and tunnels and all that kind of fun stuff, it's basically spot on the entire time from a GPS standpoint. Meanwhile, the heart rate is great while I'm climbing because my pace is steady, there's not a lot of road vibrations, but as soon as I start descending, it goes to crap, which is pretty much the norm for most all wrist-based optical heart rate sensors out there because they're on the wrist while my wrists are tight on the handlebars, trying to basically keep them crashing going downhill. But if I look at the rest of my runs and rides and other activities, overall the heart rate is basically the exact same as I saw on the Venu 2 because it's the same optical heart rate sensor, which means that by and large it's pretty good and pretty much on par with everyone else. And the story is the same on the GPS side, no obvious major errors or really many minor errors either. It's pretty good across a wide number of scenarios. Okay, there you go, a complete look at the new Garmin Venu 2 Plus. Overall, this is a very, very, very minor update for most consumers, though to Garmin, it'll probably feel like a bigger update because it's their first wearable to have a true speaker and microphone in it. So in some ways, this is a little bit like a technological proving device. The fact that it's released only, 6 or 7 months after the original Venu 2 and Venu 2S probably is a good indication of that. Normally, Garmin does releases of the Venu roughly once a year, usually like late summer, but with the last year and a half, 2 years, things are all kind of out of whack a little bit. But I would say that this is more of a technological proving watch than it is like a watch that if you already have a Venu 2, I wouldn't think you're going to upgrade to this, versus if you're coming from maybe original Venu or an older Vivo Active, then in that case, this would be more appealing, especially with those additional features in it. Now, as often the case with January, it gets to be pretty packed with sports tech stuff, and this January is going to be no different. In fact, it's probably going to be even more than usual. So definitely hit the subscribe button at the bottom there so you're tuned in for all the latest sports technology goodness the moment it drops. Have a good one.